Welcome, everyone. This is Elaine. I'm Elaine Robinson with MHPN. I'm a board member of the organization. And today is our March webinar, which is entitled 100 Years of Aquatics. Will there be more? Moore's Park Pool. In order to participate in our program, please ask questions in your Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And as you think of them, and then I will gather them up and read them to our speaker at the end of her presentation. We'll also, if the bar disappears, please wiggle your mouse at the bottom and it will show up. The chat window will contain links to resources discussed as needed. And please participate in the survey after the webinar concludes. I would like to say too that this is being recorded and the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel in April when our staff member who posts these things comes back from maternity leave. So the Michigan Historic Preservation Network advocates for Michigan's historic places to contribute to our economic vitality, sense of place, and connection to the past. We could not do the work we do without our members and volunteers. So join us at www.mhpn.org. The webinar series is sponsored by the Michigan Arts and Culture Council. Thank you very much for your support. And today's presentation, as I mentioned, is 100 Years of Aquatics. Will there be more? Moore's Park Pool. I apologize, that's spelled incorrectly, but hopefully you'll forgive me. So today's presentation is by Mary Toshach, president of Preservation Lansing. After Mary graduated with honors from the University of Michigan with a BA in art history, she continued her education at Ball State University and received a master's degree in historic preservation. Her work experience has taken her to Historic Landmarks Foundation of Indiana, Indianapolis Historic Preservation Commission, and private consulting, the Children's Museum of Michigan, Michigan History Center, and the Michigan Historical Society, and more, and obviously currently Preservation Lansing. So with that, I'd like to turn the screen over to Mary and her presentation.
Okay, can you all hear me? Yes, I guess I can't. Anyway,
I can hear you, so.
Okay, one quick correction on my work history. It was actually the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. I don't think we have one in Michigan. So. Preservation Lansing excuse me, is a 501c3 just recently attained that works to build community through education, sustainability, and advocacy. In education, we're doing a lot with social media, having a trivia Tuesday with a question such as
Oops, froze.
caps and did somebody say something?
No, you froze for a second.
Okay, window caps. And then, you know, have you seen these? It's artificial stone made by a local company that did the cement work. The middle one is sort of artworks. This is the salt shed that was done in our former bicentennial park that was constructed of pieces of the structure of the former salt shed that was at Saginaw. And then just informational things like the different rocks in the wall of Moore's Park and Moore's Park Pool. We also, with sustainability, we work with tax delinquent properties with a program with Ingham County Treasurer and the Land Bank to retain the historic properties and their character in historic neighborhoods, trying to avoid more absentee landlords and empty lots in the middle of neighborhoods for houses that have not been cared for. But we also promote architectural salvage. We don't, with the caveat that we would rather see the buildings retained, and but with the reality that some things just cannot be retained. So then we promote deconstruction rather than bulldozing those properties. Advocacy, it was kind of been on the hiatus since the pandemic, and but we are currently rebuilding and revitalizing Preservation
Mary, I
Lansing.
think there's a problem. It doesn't, looks like your slides aren't being shared. Here, let me share from my screen and see if that helps.
Okay. So I have to stop sharing though, right? Yeah, I stopped sharing, so now you've got yours up.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay.
So we're on, go one more. Okay.
On
Last
advocacy?
one there. So these images are, we've done some Save This Place rallies, like with the sunken garden. While the garden itself was saved, it was moved. It's not in its original location or original orientation, but the structure is there. Unfortunately, I couldn't save the plantings, but it was a step in the right direction for the city, who has a history of just not respecting its history. Can I hit the next slide? No. Okay. So now on to the J.H. Moore's Memorial Natatorium. This is a pool. Talk a little bit about the past. I know we've got our our expert on Moore's Park pools here, so you can always chime in and tell me if I'm doing something wrong or put something in the question and answers. My first exposure to a Moore's Park pool was when I was in graduate school at Ball State, and we took a little field trip down to Newcastle, Indiana, and look at the pool there, which was interesting, but I kind of had forgotten about them. And then when I moved back to Michigan and to Lansing, I lived in the Moore's Park neighborhood, and honestly never paid any attention to the pool until this whole thing came up about tearing it down. And then I was like, oh, we have one of those? So my bad. We can move on to the next slide. So this is a promotional postcard that Bintz made of the pool, that was constructed in 22, but not actually completely finished until 1923, when they had their grand opening. It is the third pool that Bintz designed. The first two were in Flint, and those have both been demolished. When this was being designed and built, there was also one in Indianapolis being built. And these two pools were the impetus for his patent application, which was approved in 1926. And it was also encouraged him to leave the city and start his own business. Next slide, please. So Wesley Bintz was born in 1891, died in 1967. His obituary said he was 65 when he died, but other documents show him being born in 1891, not 1902. So I don't know where the discrepancy comes in. But the family moved to Michigan in 1908, and he went to high school at Charlotte High School. He went on to get a bachelor's in civil engineering in 1916 and a master's in structural engineering in 1918. And I'm always curious as if he knew my grandfather, who was at the University of Michigan and graduated in 1917. But without holding a seance, I will never know. So then he became the city engineer in Flint for about 2.5 years. He was an engineer with the city under Otto Eckert. he was appointed city engineer in 1922. The newspaper articles made it sound like there was some sort of political business going on with it. People were unhappy with Eckert, and they liked Bintz, so he became city engineer for about a year, and then he left to start his own pool business. And he was also founder and president of the National Pool Association in the 1950s, and president of the Professional Engineers and Lansing Grand Valley Engineers. He was pretty active in his professional field. So in the image that's on that came from the Lansing, they called them pencil sketches, or Lansing State Journal, and it was done in the 1950s. We can go to the next one. I'm going really fast here, so lots of time for questions. The pool was proposed in 1921, excuse me. Construction began in 1922, and then Bintz was named city engineer while it was in the process of being built. During that time, before it opened in 23, they were doing a lot of cost-cutting measures, as well as changing the plans so that they could get it done more quickly. The pool held 250 gallons of water. It accommodated 600 bathers, and it was filled from the bottom originally and heated naturally. They didn't have any heaters, and because I guess filling it from the bottom, it would be heated by the sun, etc., as it was filled. And of course, it didn't have all the trees it has around it. It does now. The gutters provided sanitation. They didn't have a sanitation system like they have now, and it indicated that the gutters took the scum off the top, which was the oil from the bodies that were swimming in it. But it also lost like 47,000 gallons of water a day through that system, because it would drain out and go into the sewer system and into the river. The original depths of the pool, they went from 3 feet to 9 feet. And around the whole perimeter of the pool, there was 5 feet deep, so people could reach the grab rail for security. And then the pool was dedicated on August 31st in 1923. Currently, the deepest point in the pool is 5 feet. They filled in the deep end. So as far as events, etc., that happened, they early on they had times the use of the pool was segregated by boys and by girls, and then they also required different color bathing caps depending on whether you could swim or not, so that the lifeguards could differentiate where you were. They didn't want you in the deep end if you couldn't swim. And then they had numerous events. So there's a newspaper article from 1928 talking about water carnival at the pool, where they had 7 different events that included swimming stroke demonstrations, canoeing demonstrations, diving exhibition. So the pool was well used at that time and had a lot of programming going on, which they also did. They had classes, etc. Johnny Weissmuller, later on in life became Tarzan, actually visited the pool on his way to another event after he was an Olympian, and he'd stayed at the Olds Hotel, asked the concierge, "Where can I go swimming?" He pointed him to Moore's Park Pool. When he showed up, the manager said, "Well, we'll kick all the kids out and let you swim on your own." And he was like, "No, I'll just play with the kids." So I guess it was a great day for people. And I've talked to people whose grandparents had swum with Johnny Weissmuller, which would have been a great story to have. The visitation at the pool has been declining over the years. I think part of it is swimming pools, public swimming pools in general are not as popular. Part of that reason is because people are building their own pools in their backyards. I believe that there's parents are, more concerned about the safety of their kids, and with the advent of in the 60s and the civil rights legislation, a lot of public pools were just torn down because people didn't want to integrate. Well, fortunately, we're beyond that part, but the question now is, where do we go from here? So we can go to the last slide. Elaine, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Documents being created, or they're created, but we have not seen them yet. At WTA Architects, the schedule was that they were going to be finished in December, but we have not seen them yet. And that's obviously an advocacy thing we're working on. The assessment report indicates a lot of work needs to be done to bring them up in $20 to bring it up to health code requirements. It needs about $6 million worth of work. There are a few things that can be bypassed because of the historic nature of the product or the building. But the assessment that was done was a visual assessment only. It was not, they didn't do any invasive testing on the structural stability of the concrete. And the concrete is 100 years old. Water is cancerous, so to speak, for concrete. And there could be a lot of things going on in the interior of the bowl that we don't see. They have indicated many areas of failure, including spalling, rusted rebar, radial cracks, and obviously rusting rebar when it rusts expands and it causes the concrete to fail, as well as water being the number one enemy of any structure. So the question these days is the building is spending $6 million restoring the building as a pool financially viable? And what are we going to do in the future? How are we going to sustain the maintenance? The maintenance in the past has pretty much been, let's just put Band-Aids on it until we have enough money to do what's right. And of course, that means every year it gets more and more expensive. Do we look for another use for the pool? A recent meeting with Preservation Lansing, there was definitely there was new blood there, and they were definitely interested in seeing the pool being a pool again, which is not a no, but it's the issue is, can we raise the money, and will the city maintain it, or do we need to set up a separate fund just for maintenance? Or is there a better use for the structure that it's not putting 250,000 gallons of water in a concrete basin that could collapse? Do we get somebody to do an assessment of the viability of the concrete? And is there a need for a pool? There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. We're going to move ahead with fundraising because no matter what we do, what happens with it, it'll still need additional money than what the city can afford to pay. And the other option is maybe if there's a need for a pool, we could build a modern pool that's easier to do programming in. So the questions, any input anybody has would be great, because we're still mulling this over. And I'm pretty much done. So it's been a whopping 20 minutes.
Well, we don't have any questions from our audience yet, but let me ask you about,
Sure.
I know that there was a survey that was done of the structure. Did that not include the concrete and the ability for the?
That was part of the assessment, and they only did visual surveys. So they didn't do, for 100-year-old concrete, which we don't even know how it was made, and if we know that there were cross-cutting measures done, I would think it would be smart to have that kind of testing done prior to saying, okay, we're going to restore this, we're going to fill cracks with epoxy, and it'll last forever. I don't
think the epoxy way to go is not a structural engineer, but I think that may not be the way to go. I mean,
but that's what they're suggesting.
Is there a possibility of taking a sample of the concrete and having it analyzed?
And that's what I am going to try to, I have been attempting to contact the parks director. My next step is to just go into his office and talk to him about this, because I think it's a question that definitely needs to be answered before we move forward.
Yeah, one of our questions from our commenters is, excuse me, is the city of Lansing supportive of keeping the pool?
Well, they have admitted that they would not tear it down because it's all concrete and it would be too costly.
Okay.
But I believe that they're supportive of saving the structure, but they're not necessarily supportive of saving it as a pool unless we can find a means of funding it or co-funding it as a public-private partnership.
Right.
Moving forward.
Okay. We have another question that asks, is WTA doing the construction documents and when will they be done? Is it known? I'm not sure if WTA is Wigan, Tinknell and Associates.
Yes, it is. WTA is doing the construction documents. They were, I might be freezing. I'm being told I'm unstable.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be done by the end of December. I was told in January that they were expected at the end of February, but the city owed WTA information. And since then, I have not had any response to any inquiries with the city.
So what's being done for the pool now? I mean, is it just people have just walked away from it, or is there barriers up? I haven't seen it in person, so
yeah, there are barriers. It's locked up. It's got a fence around it, and it's gated, so it's pretty inaccessible. There are people, obviously kids, if they want to get in, and there has been graffiti on the walls, but that's been painted over.
On the stone walls, on the cobblestone walls?
No, inside the pool itself.
Oh, okay.
And then we did have some cleanups. We cleaned up the leaves and stuff around the outside of the pool. We had wanted to clean up the leaves from inside the pool, but we got the wrong keys, so we couldn't get in. There is if you look at that picture on the bottom, I think it's the bottom left-hand corner of the pool, you can see part of that stone wall has fallen over.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So they're not doing a good job of trimming the weed trees that are growing in that spot. So the trees have pushed it over. So there's some basic park maintenance that just has not been done. And
so is that something that Preservation Lansing can advocate for, that at least let's get the trees and stuff out that are undermining the?
Yes, and we actually, when we were doing the leaf cleanup, one of the members came out with some power tools and stuff and cut a lot of those trees down.
Oh, good. Okay.
Not the really huge ones, but the smaller saplings that
sure
were going.
Well,
so
every little bit helps, those roots are
yeah, I think we cleaned up about 50 bags full of leaves. So I don't think the leaves had been cleaned up there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, there were inches of decayed leaves. I mean, I sent out a post saying, if you want any good fresh mulch and stuff for your yard, come get it. Yeah. So
Okay. Do you know what happened to in earlier photos, was a ladder? Has that been removed and stored, or is that just gone?
you're talking about, I missed the part, is it the diving boards you were asking
Yeah,
about?
maybe that's what it was.
Yeah,
It
those have
looked like,
been, those are gone. I think they were removed because they can no longer dive with it only being 5 feet
because it's
deep.
only 5 feet, yeah.
Right, and
And,
they still have slides, but that's
okay.
modern
Can you
slides.
explain how it was 5 feet at the edges, but then the lowest point was 3 feet? Was that in the center?
The lowest point is end of the pool because it's egg shaped.
Okay, yeah,
The deep end was the tip of the egg. I believe because it's been filled into the 5 foot level. I
you're not
believe
sure.
that there was probably a ledge, so
Got it.
kids could stand on the ledge and hold on to the rail.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, but is there anything else you'd like to share with us, Mary, about this? This is Betty Davis, for those of you. She wants to learn all about the pool too.
She wants to go swimming.
She
She's
does.
an unusual
She does.
cat.
She doesn't even like it when it rains, so I don't think she wants to go swimming.
The only thing I'd like to add is if you'd like to be involved in helping with the pool, please contact us at Preservation Lansing. We have a landing page for a website. I finally got a couple people that are interested in helping me get it finalized. But you can submit your email address. There's also a link if you want to become a member. And we also have mugs with the patent rendering of the pool on them if you're interested. So.
Okay, well, there's no more questions. So do you know, is the architect, I know you said he passed away in Lansing. Is he also buried in Lansing?
Yeah, he's buried in, I can't remember the name, but it's is it Riverdale? No, the cemetery that's on the west side of town that used to be an amusement park. Deepdale, Deepdale Cemetery. Yeah.
And did you tell us is the pool listed on the National Register?
Yes, it actually is.
Deepdale. Somebody said Deepdale.
Oh, Deepdale. Yes. I'm guessing that was Cassandra. Thank you.
No, it was Diane Wing.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. It is listed on the National Register. It's an interesting story because renovation on the pool, and then the National Park Service, when they were reviewing the grant, they contacted the State Historic Preservation Office and said, "Hey, you guys, this is an important structure. You need to list it." So it was Marsh Davis, who's now president of Historic Landmarks Foundation of Indiana, that wrote the nomination. It was a typical nomination of the 80s. Not a lot of detailed information because didn't have newspapers.com, et cetera, to dig through data. But it was listed at a national level of significance. What I would love to do, assuming the building itself will be restored, is to get it listed as a National Historic Landmark, because it is the oldest remaining pool, and it was the impetus for the patent design, and the Indianapolis pools have long been gone. So
is there any thought to redoing the nomination and updating with additional information?
It would be great to do it.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time and money.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think Tegan will write it. I'm sorry, did I just volunteer somebody?
I've often said my husband will write it, but I know better.
Yeah, he should write it. Come on, Bob.
Between the two of them, we could get a great.
All the research has been done. So, I think that I would recommend updating the nomination, and then that's
Oh,
what,
definitely.
you know, gets the attention of the landmark committee to decide whether or not they're gonna do additional work with it. But, and it might, is it something that I can't believe I have to ask this, is Lansing a CLG?
Yes, yes.
So is there a way to get a grant to help with this work through the CLG?
You know, now that, I don't, well, Cassandra would know, but, I don't know who's heading up from the city side, the staff for the CLG. In the past, when I was on the Historic District Commission, there didn't seem to be any interest in applying for any of those because it was too much work.
Yeah,
But as a not-for-profit, maybe Preservation Lansing could partner with the city to do that.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I don't want to, the network does have a couple of loan programs that might be
Right.
of interest to you too. But they're loan programs, so they'd have to either be repaid or forgiven. But thing that, you know, we could talk about too offline. So
Right.
okay, well, if there's no other questions, and I'm not seeing anything, I know we're a little short today, but that's okay. This was very interesting. It's great to learn more about this wonderful site. And thank you very much, Mary, for all your time and energy.
Well, and thank you all for attending and listening to my rambles.
They were interesting rambles, so thank you. And as I said earlier, this will be placed on our YouTube site sometime in April. So please check back. You can check the webinars page at mhpn.org, and they will you'll be able to follow the link from there to get to the post, to the video posting. So I'm going to share it with all your friends and neighbors. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Next month, we are going to do April, we're going to do a visit to the downtown synagogue in downtown Detroit. So looking forward to it. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.